Mars does not welcome visitors, it waits. No wind stirs its red plains, no sound echoes across its barren valleys. From orbit it appears simple, an empty desert frozen in time. But the closer you get, the more the illusion collapses. Patterns emerge in the dust, shadows trace impossible lines. Shapes mirror themselves across kilometers of barren land, repeating with uncanny precision. It is a silence that feels deliberate, almost aware, as if the planet is holding a secret it refuses to share. The rovers were not sent to uncover mysteries. Their mission was routine: analyze rocks, sample dust, photograph terrain. And yet in the quiet corners of Mars, they found something unexpected. Structures rise from the plains like frozen machinery. Layers stacked upon layers, straight edges slicing across the landscape, terraces forming patterns that no natural process should produce. Hollowed sections appear darker than their surroundings, as if something was removed long ago, leaving only the frame behind. From afar you might mistake them for ordinary hills. Up close they insist otherwise. Parallel walls stretch over valleys, unbroken. Ridges climb at exact angles. Platforms seem deliberately placed, as though designed for a purpose now lost to time. And threading through it all, iron, dense, concentrated, darkening the ground, resisting erosion. Mars is full of iron, but here it is focused, gathered, intentional, as if guided into position. Scientists call these formations neutral names: geological structures, natural ridges, formations. Safe words to suppress curiosity, but the human mind refuses neutrality. These shapes echo memories we cannot ignore: abandoned factories, steel plants, industrial ruins left to decay. Towers and pipes may be gone, but the skeleton remains. Bones of purpose embedded in rust and dust. And that is when the unease begins. The iron mountains are not chaotic. They are deliberate. They align. They repeat. Something, whether natural or not, shaped this iron and left it behind. Something that understood structure, repetition, control. No sound emerges from these plains. No sign of life, and yet these mountains speak in silence. They whisper of work, of function, of a presence that existed and vanished. And once you notice the pattern, you cannot look away. Every ridge, every terrace, every shadowed hollow insists on recognition. It is too familiar, too purposeful to dismiss as coincidence. The question rises on its own. Why would a dead planet, one thought to be barren and silent, carry the marks of industry? Why does Mars remember work we cannot imagine, structures that suggest a civilization, or at least an intelligence, gone long before we arrived? Perhaps Mars does not hide secrets. Perhaps it hides memories. And some memories are not meant to be forgotten. The Iron Mountains do not announce themselves. They wait, silent and vast, stretching across plains that appear endless. At first glance, they seem like ordinary ridges, the kind of formations a planet might produce over eons. But Mars has a way of punishing assumptions. Move closer, let the cameras linger, and the illusion falls apart. Straight lines, right angles, repeating terraces, shapes that belong to planning, not chaos. These formations run in systems, networks that crisscross the land. Long corridors of iron-rich rock stretch for kilometers, unbroken and precise. Terraces rise deliberately, one atop another, like the foundations of structures built to last. Some areas are hollowed, shadowed pits hinting at something removed, something lost. Nature rarely leaves hollow perfection. Mars does. Step back and the scale becomes impossible. These are not small anomalies. They stretch over regions larger than many cities on Earth. Some ridges align with others, forming parallel grids as if following a blueprint. The arrangement is methodical, the repetition meticulous. And yet there is no human hand here, no clear origin. Only the mountains themselves, frozen testimony to some unknown process. The shapes evoke memories of industry, abandoned refineries. Rusted steel complexes, the kind of decay humans recognize instantly. The walls are too straight, the terraces too regular. Iron gathers along corridors rather than spreading freely, as if directed. Channels run beside the ridges, suspiciously uniform in width. On Earth, this would signal intentional construction. On Mars, it signals something stranger, a puzzle left unsolved, evidence without explanation. And then comes the realization: erosion is patient, chaos is relentless. Over billions of years, the randomness of the universe should have destroyed this order, but here it remains. The ridges, the terraces, the hollowed corridors, they endure, preserved by rust and silence. Mars refuses to yield. The evidence of intent persists where nothing else does. Every rover image reinforces the unease. Shadows shift with the sun, revealing angles too exact to be natural. Repetition leaps out in the patterns of light and dark, betraying a design too disciplined to be mere coincidence. These mountains are not merely large, they are deliberate. They refuse the randomness of time. They resist interpretation, but they demand recognition. And recognition breeds questions. How could nature produce such disciplined formations? How could erosion, wind, and time leave behind structures that mimic the work of engineers, factories, or refineries? The mind begins to wander toward impossible answers, reluctant to accept anything so improbable. Mars holds its secrets tightly. The Iron Mountains stretch out in silence, guiding the eye but offering no explanation. And the more you stare, the more you sense a presence in the geometry itself. Not alive, not conscious, but a memory of work done, of something that shaped the iron and left it behind, as deliberate as a signature. And then, just when you begin to question your own perception, the mountains hint at scale beyond comprehension. Corridors too vast to walk, terraces too wide to cross in a day, alignments that suggest intelligence measured in generations, not hours. Mars may appear empty, but the mountains say otherwise. And somewhere deep in their silent iron, a story waits, one humanity is not yet ready to understand. Look closer, and the Iron Mountains stop being mountains. They begin to resemble something familiar, something human, but impossible. Long, straight corridors run beside terraces, hollowed platforms hint at missing machinery, and repeating structures stretch across plains as if copied from a blueprint. They do not curve, they do not falter, they persist, they are deliberate. On Earth, the shapes would be called industrial ruins. Factories abandoned, refineries stripped, steel plants left to rust. Foundations remain, walls crumble, terraces collapse, but the imprint of purpose lingers. The pattern is unmistakable. And Mars, a planet that should know nothing of industry, carries the same signature. Some ridges appear reinforced, denser bands bracing weaker sections. Others are hollowed as though material has been removed, leaving empty chambers that cast long shadows in the copper light. Channels cut beside the formations suggest transport, movement of material across the terrain. Even erosion seems to have respected the structure. The planet's slow, grinding processes failed to erase the order. The human mind recognizes these signs instantly. Repetition, alignment, purpose, function, and it rebels, because seeing industry on Mars is not a natural reaction. It is a violation of expectation, a whisper that something somewhere once worked here, or was guided to work long before we arrived. Some scientists insist it is coincidence. Wind, water, chemical reactions over billions of years. But these processes rarely produce symmetry on this scale. They rarely stack layers with precise edges. They rarely carve hollowed chambers in regular intervals. Randomness does not copy itself across kilometers, yet the Iron Mountains do, and scale matters. These are not small anomalies. Some ridges stretch wider than city blocks, rise taller than buildings, and extend over regions larger than many countries. The precision implies knowledge of weight, stability, function. Something that built these ridges knew how to anchor iron, how to structure corridors, how to repeat elements across vast distances. Even the iron itself is unusual. Concentrated along ridges, focused into channels, gathered where it strengthens the formations rather than scattered. On Earth, concentrated iron like this signals extraction, refinement, deliberate collection. On Mars, it signals something more disturbing: control, order, evidence of labor or guidance long before humans arrived. And yet no one is there, no machinery, no markings of life, only the mountains, silent, stubborn, refusing to yield explanation. And that is when the unease deepens, because ruins imply history, history implies actors. Mars shows us the aftermath, but not the hand that shaped it. The mind instinctively asks, if this is natural, why does it look engineered? If this is engineered, who or what built it? And the silence answers nothing. The Iron Mountains remain, indifferent to our scrutiny, immense, structured, haunting. They are the ghosts of purpose frozen in iron, waiting for someone or something to understand why they exist. And as you step back to absorb the scale, the question grows sharper, louder, impossible to ignore. Could Mars have once had industry? Mars is red because it is wounded. Iron saturates the planet, bleeding through dust and stone, coloring everything in shades of rust and copper. From a distance it looks uniform, a simple hue of lifelessness. Up close the story is far stranger. Some regions are barren, pale, almost empty. Others, like the Iron Mountains, are dense, concentrated, almost deliberately arranged. Iron here is not scattered, it is gathered, corralled, anchored. It resists erosion, holding shapes that refuse to blur over billions of years. Iron behaves predictably under pressure, time, and chemical reactions. On Earth it dissolves, oxidizes, corrodes, spreads. Natural processes are messy, chaotic, imperfect. Yet on Mars, in the Iron Mountains, it follows corridors, concentrates in ridges, fortifies terraces. It gathers where weight must be supported, spreads where structure requires, hollows where something has been removed. The signature is unmistakable, order persists, control remains. Geologists attempt explanations. Water once flowed, sediments shifted, oxidation slowly sculpted rock. True, these processes happened, but nature does not make right angles. It does not repeat patterns over kilometers. It does not hollow chambers with precision or stack layers like foundations. Chaos produces curves, randomness produces scatter. The Iron Mountains are straight, repeated, deliberate. And scale makes the impossibility even more unsettling. Corridors that stretch for miles, terraces taller than any building humans could construct, ridges aligned with a consistency that screams intention. Some suggest pareidolia, our human brains forcing meaning onto chaos, seeing faces in clouds, machines in rocks. But the Iron Mountains are not illusions. They are physical, they are measurable, they cast shadows, they resist collapse. And every time a rover passes overhead, cameras capture the same alignment, the same layers, the same hollowed corridors. The effect is cumulative. The mind cannot dismiss it as coincidence. The more you study them, the harder it becomes to believe in randomness. Iron is heavy, it sinks, it spreads. Nature does not herd it into grids, or anchor it into terraces, or hollow out chambers for no reason. And yet, that is exactly what Mars has done, or has allowed to persist. These mountains are not just features, they are evidence. Evidence of a process, of action, of something beyond the slow, indifferent forces of wind and dust. And then there is scale. Entire regions are dominated by this pattern. It is not a single ridge or anomaly. It is a network, a system, a landscape designed to endure. The mountains are anchored, deliberate and permanent. Time has not erased them. Billions of years have passed, and still, the pattern persists. And as you gaze across the horizon, you begin to realize the depth of the mystery. If natural processes could produce this level of order, why does it appear nowhere else on the planet? If an intelligence shaped it, who or what was capable of shaping iron and landscapes on such a monumental scale? Mars, a planet we once thought empty, silent, dead, now hints at an impossible history. Its iron preserves memory, its mountains whisper intent. And the question that rises above all others is simple, terrifying, and unresolved. What could have built this? Long before Mars was silent, it was alive in ways we can scarcely imagine. Rivers once carved through its valleys, lakes shimmered in sunken basins, and clouds spilled rain across plains now frozen and dust-choked. The planet was not barren, it moved, it flowed, it worked. And somewhere in those movements, the Iron Mountains took shape. Water is a sculptor. It erodes, it carries, it deposits. It spreads minerals, dissolves rock, rearranges landscapes. But on Mars, the traces are peculiar. Sediment channels converge precisely into the regions of the Iron Mountains. Deposits gather in corridors, fill hollows, fortify terraces. Flow patterns suggest control, as if water was guided rather than left to wander. The planet's own chemistry appears to follow rules imposed from somewhere, by something. Imagine walking through that ancient Mars. The air is thick, heavy with moisture. Rivers hum along hidden channels, feeding the iron-rich ridges. You hear the subtle sound of erosion carving cliffs, the distant rumble of water settling in ancient basins. And all the while the Iron Mountains rise before you, not chaotic peaks, not random mounds, but structured, organized, repeated, deliberate. They are not merely shaped by water. They are sculpted in concert with it, as if the planet itself were part of a single, impossible machine. Some argue this is coincidence, natural forces aligning, sediment reacting to pressure, but the scale defies comfort. Channels run for kilometers, terraces maintain exact heights, hollows repeat their dimensions. On Earth, such precision would suggest intelligent intervention. On Mars, it hints at something we are not meant to understand. Iron interacts with water differently than rock. It dissolves slowly, settles in dense concentrations, forms hardened layers resistant to collapse. The ancient rivers may have carried iron, concentrating it along ridges, shaping hollows, but they do not explain the repetition. They do not explain right angles. They do not explain the terrace-like layering or the hollowed chambers that hint at a purpose long vanished. Water alone cannot account for the evidence, and yet water was the facilitator. It allowed the mountain forms to persist. It carried and deposited, guided by physics, chemistry, or perhaps by a hand or mind we cannot identify. The Iron Mountains are as much a testament to ancient Martian water as they are to the forces that shaped them. They are the fossilized interaction of a dynamic environment and a structure that refuses to appear accidental. Step back and the vision is staggering, rivers converging on terraces. Iron concentrated with surgical precision, channels aligning like veins feeding a heart, a planet once alive, flowing, working, and yet producing forms that evoke industry, purpose, and design. It is impossible not to feel unease. The scale, the repetition, the precision, all whisper of a hidden intelligence, a forgotten process, or a planet that itself once acted with intention. And as you trace the ancient riverbeds, a single thought emerges, chilling in its simplicity. If water helped shape these forms, what force guided it? The human mind is a storyteller. It searches for meaning, even when none exists. Faces appear in clouds, animals emerge from shadows, and on Mars it does something far stranger. It sees industry. It sees corridors, terraces, refineries. It sees purpose. This is known as pareidolia, the brain's relentless drive to find patterns. It evolved to protect us, to spot predators, to recognize tools. But in the Iron Mountains, it does more than protect. It convinces us that the impossible is real, that these ridges and hollowed terraces were once engineered. That the planet remembers work, labor, and order, and yet the evidence is not only in our minds. Measurements confirm what our eyes suspect. Ridges align, terraces maintain exact heights, hollowed corridors repeat dimensions over kilometers. Iron is concentrated where it strengthens the structures. This is not imagination. This is reality bending perception toward familiarity. The mountains themselves speak, and our minds translate their message. Purpose, design, function. The danger is subtle. Once we recognize the pattern, the illusion solidifies. Every shadowed channel seems like a passageway, every terrace like a platform. Our minds insist on interpretation, weaving stories where science struggles to offer answers. And the longer we stare, the more the line between reality and pattern blurs. We begin to see not Mars, but Mars as it might have been, active, functioning, shaped by forces that defy explanation. Some scientists caution against overinterpretation. They warn that the brain is too eager to see meaning, too quick to find symmetry where none exists. And yet the Iron Mountains resist dismissal. They persist under scrutiny. They endure beyond perception. And for those who study them, the sense of unease grows. Not because we are imagining purpose, but because the structures themselves suggest it. There is a peculiar feedback loop at work. Mars shapes our perception, and our perception shapes Mars. The mountains invite recognition. They demand narrative. We supply it. And in doing so, we begin to understand the scale of what may be lost to time. The planet whispers its history, and our minds are the only translators. And so we hesitate, because even if it is only the mind seeing patterns, the patterns are there to see. And the scale, the repetition, the uncanny precision, they do not belong in a random desert. They belong in something designed, something remembered, something deliberate. And once that thought takes hold, a quiet terror emerges. Because if our brains are interpreting intent where none exists, what if they are not? What if Mars is showing exactly what it wants us to see? And then the question forms, unavoidable, silent, insistent. How much of what we see is real, and how much is waiting for us to understand? NASA images arrived slowly, quietly, almost as if they were meant to be discovered rather than announced. The rover's cameras captured the Martian surface in painstaking detail. Ridges, terraces, corridors, hollowed platforms. At first, the world saw only dust and red plains. But for those who looked closer, the Iron Mountains refused to hide. Shadows played tricks, angles deceived the eye, yet the patterns persisted. One ridge aligned perfectly with another across a valley. A terrace stretched for miles with exact uniformity. Hollowed chambers repeated their dimensions as if someone or something had copied them from a blueprint. Even under shifting light, under lenses with distortion, the structures held their form. The images became riddles, puzzles that refused casual dismissal. The public reacted predictably. Curiosity, wonder, disbelief. Some saw natural formations. Others saw industrial ruins. Forums lit up with speculation. Scientists cautioned restraint, explaining shadows, perspective, and erosion. Yet even skeptics could not erase the sense of intentionality. The Iron Mountains had a stubborn refusal to be ignored. Some images were more convincing than others. Certain angles revealed what looked like layered platforms, perfectly straight edges, ridges running parallel for kilometers. In other frames, hollow depressions appeared, their darkness hinting at chambers once occupied or extracted from. Every new image layered onto the last, building a landscape that seemed engineered, a network of corridors and terraces stretching over an impossible scale. Light was deceptive but revealing. When the sun hung low, shadows elongated, exaggerating angles, highlighting parallel lines, making terraces seem sharper, corridors deeper. From orbit they were subtle, from ground level they became undeniable, and yet the mystery remained. Nothing moved, nothing spoke, only shapes, iron and silence. NASA's official narrative stayed neutral. Geological formations, erosion, sedimentation, safe words to quiet speculation, but even scientists could not fully explain the precision. Nature rarely produces repeating terraces, right angles, and aligned hollowed chambers simultaneously. On Mars, these coincidences appeared to stack, over kilometers, over decades of observation, over multiple rover perspectives. And as each image circulated, unease grew. The planet seemed to be telling a story, one camera frame at a time. Something once existed here, whether natural or artificial, deliberate or accidental, that shaped the land in a way that challenges our understanding. And whatever it was, it left a memory, a footprint encoded in iron, shadow, and geometry. The debate persists. Are the Iron Mountains a trick of light and perception? Or are they the remnants of something beyond earthly expectation? And even as arguments rage, the structures remain, indifferent to interpretation, monumental in scale, and eerily consistent. And in that silence, a quiet fear emerges. Because if this is natural, it is unlike anything we have ever seen. If it is artificial, it suggests intelligence we cannot comprehend. Mars holds its secrets in plain sight, waiting for us to recognize them, or dismiss them at our peril. And the question lingers, heavier with every passing frame. What force, what presence could have shaped an entire planet and left only its memory behind? Could Mars have once known industry? The question hangs in the thin, cold air, unanswerable yet irresistible. It is not about aliens screaming across the plains or cities hidden under dust. It is quieter, subtler, a what-if whispered across billions of years. What if some force, some intelligence once shaped the planet with purpose? What if the Iron Mountains are not anomalies, but the remnants of labor long vanished? The structures invite speculation. Terraces stacked with precision. Corridors running in perfect alignment. Hollow chambers repeating across kilometers. Iron concentrated along paths that suggest transport or reinforcement. On Earth, no geologist would hesitate to call this industrial. On Mars, we hesitate only because it seems impossible. Yet the evidence, the repeated patterns, the scale, the intentionality, is undeniable. Imagine a world with rivers, lakes, and a thicker atmosphere, now gone. Water could have guided processes, depositing minerals, concentrating iron. But water alone does not explain the repetition, the precise right angles, the hollowed terraces. Something else would have been required: guidance, control, an unseen hand shaping outcomes over generations. And here lies the subtle terror. The planet may have once been active not only geologically, but functionally. Not alive in the way we understand, but working toward a purpose, constructing forms that persist even as the atmosphere thinned and life, if it existed, disappeared. The Iron Mountains are evidence that Mars once had rules that produce structures with astonishing order, complexity, and scale. Yet speculation is dangerous. Without evidence, imagination runs wild. Still, the patterns are real. The corridors, terraces, and hollow chambers are not subjective. They exist, stubborn and monumental. The question is not whether the mountains exist, they do, but what shaped them and why. Humanity is conditioned to seek origin stories. We look for civilizations, for creators, for engineers. On Mars, we find their echoes but never their presence. The planet holds only the aftermath, a landscape that looks engineered, functional, yet abandoned. And abandonment is unsettling. It implies work done, purpose fulfilled, or erased. The Iron Mountains suggest processes beyond mere erosion. They hint at activity on a scale that challenges imagination. If natural forces created them, Mars is unlike any other planet. If intelligent forces created them, we are only seeing the residue, the footprints of a vanished hand. And in either case, a planet that was once active now lies silent, waiting, observing, retaining memory in iron, structure, and shadow. And in that waiting, a quiet unease grows. Because Mars offers no guidance, no explanation, no confirmation. Only structures that look impossible, corridors that suggest purpose, and terraces that defy natural expectation. We are left with questions and the weight of possibility. Perhaps the planet once had industry. Perhaps it had intelligence. Perhaps it is showing us something we are not ready to comprehend. And then in the distance, the shadows stretch across the Iron Mountains, perfectly aligned, perfectly silent, and the thought forms. What if all we see is only a fraction of what once existed? And what if the rest is still waiting, hidden beyond our perception? Time is patient. Billions of years pass on Mars, slow and indifferent, stretching into eternity. Wind whispers across plains, dust drifts like frozen smoke, and the Iron Mountains endure. Structures once sharp begin to crumble. Hollow chambers cave slightly. Terraces sag under gravity's relentless pull. Yet their form persists. Order survives chaos, frozen in iron, shadow, and stone. Erosion works differently here than on Earth. Without oceans, without thick atmosphere, without tectonic upheaval, the forces that usually erase history move slowly. A small fracture may take millennia to widen. Dust accumulates, yet does not bury. Time becomes a silent preserver, not a destroyer. The Iron Mountains are fossilized, etched into the planet's memory, their design stubborn against entropy, and with that preservation comes a haunting. The structures resemble work done, labor completed, purpose fulfilled, and abandoned. Terraces, corridors, hollow chambers all hint at activity long gone. Yet unlike ruins on Earth, no traces of life, tools, or signs of occupation remain. Only the framework persists, silent, patient, watching, waiting. The longer you observe, the more the passage of time becomes part of the story. What was once active, vibrant, or functional is now still. Wind scours edges, iron rusts, terraces crumble just enough to remind us they were built. The planet moves slowly, eroding evidence and yet simultaneously preserving it. A paradox, a contradiction. Mars is at once destructive and protective, and in that paradox the mind begins to see ghosts. Not of creatures, not of machines, but of purpose. Mars seems alive in memory alone, maintaining order where nothing should remain. The corridors stretch, hollowed chambers echo absence, and terraces hint at work completed eons ago. Nothing moves, nothing speaks, yet something lingers, something remembers. It is impossible to measure the unease it produces. The Iron Mountains are both natural and impossible, real and unreal. The erosion is subtle enough to leave shapes recognizable, yet thorough enough to erase certainty. Time has blurred edges, softened corners, yet preserved intent. And as the dust drifts across the ridges, the mind wonders, what else might remain unseen, hidden beneath layers of rust and silence? And then comes the quietest terror of all. Mars will outlast us. Billions of years have passed, billions more will come. And yet the mountains, their alignment, their terraces, their hollow chambers will endure. They will wait for someone or something to return long after we are gone. And in that waiting, in that preservation, one thought becomes unbearable. Mars is not silent because nothing happened. Mars is silent because it remembers, and it remembers better than we ever could. We leave Mars as quietly as we arrived, gliding across red plains that stretch beyond comprehension. The Iron Mountains fade in the distance, ridges and terraces shrinking to shadows, hollow corridors swallowed by perspective. Yet the memory of them lingers, heavier than the thin atmosphere, more persistent than the drifting dust. The planet does not speak, it does not wave goodbye, it merely watches. Its mountains, aligned, hollowed, and precise, remain as testimony to something we cannot yet define. They resist interpretation, defy explanation, and refuse closure. And in that refusal lies a strange power. We want to understand, yet understanding seems almost forbidden. Rovers retreat, cameras turn away, and human eyes begin to blink against the relentless red. We carry images, measurements, and maps, yet the weight of the unknown remains. Every photograph whispers the same unsettling question. If these structures are natural, why do they mimic intelligence so convincingly? If they are artificial, why is no creator present to explain them? And even as we depart, Mars leaves a trace in the mind. Terraces stacked with impossible precision, corridors hollowed across kilometers, shadows that suggest chambers long abandoned, iron concentrated, not scattered, a planet that remembers labor, work, and design, even as it has stripped all signs of life. It is not horror, it is not joy. It is a quiet dissonance that settles deep in the chest, a weight that persists long after the imagination stops wandering. For a moment, one wonders if we have merely visited a museum of memory, a planet preserving echoes of intent we may never fully decode. And then the final thought emerges, sharp and inescapable. Mars is not hiding secrets. It is hiding stories older than human comprehension, etched in iron, layered in terraces, aligned in corridors, and preserved through billions of years of patience. The structures remain silent, monumental, indifferent. We cannot take them with us. We cannot fully interpret them. We can only record, observe, and leave. And in that leaving, the unease grows, quiet, insistent. Perhaps Mars is not empty. Perhaps it is filled with the memory of something that once worked, once labored, once existed, and still waits. The last images linger in our minds, and the final question refuses resolution. What if Mars remembers more than we are capable of understanding? And with that thought, the red horizon fades, leaving only silence. Even after we depart, Mars does not let go. The Iron Mountains remain, stubborn and monumental, etched across valleys that seem endless. Their corridors and terraces cast shadows that shift with the sun, revealing hidden alignments, patterns that only grow clearer with time. The more we study them, the more they resist simple explanations. And with that resistance comes fascination and unease. Modern exploration scratches the surface, yet hints at depths we are only beginning to comprehend. Rovers traverse their ridges, cameras scan hollow chambers, orbiters map the grids, but each discovery raises new questions. Some corridors appear deeper than expected. Hollowed terraces stretch further than a human mind can intuitively measure. And in the shadows, subtle formations suggest additional structures, concealed by dust, waiting to be revealed. The planet itself seems to orchestrate perception. Lighting plays tricks. A ridge that appears solid from one angle dissolves into a hollowed terrace from another. Shadows stretch corridors into labyrinths. Even the simplest formation becomes layered with mystery, as if Mars is deliberately guiding attention while concealing its full story. The Iron Mountains are both revealed and hidden, a paradox the human mind struggles to reconcile. And the questions multiply. Could these formations have served a purpose we cannot imagine? Transport, extraction, storage, or is their function entirely beyond earthly comprehension? A system designed by forces we cannot measure or intelligence we cannot recognize. Every layer, every ridge, every hollowed corridor suggests function, yet nothing confirms it. The evidence is abundant, but understanding is elusive. Even the scientists studying the images feel it, a quiet disquiet that grows the longer they linger. Data alone cannot explain the precision. Simulations cannot reproduce the scale. And yet the human brain is compelled to seek answers, to connect lines, to impose logic on something that may not belong to human logic at all. Mars seems aware of this compulsion, holding its cards just beyond reach, presenting glimpses, shadows, fragments, and nothing more. And with every passing mission, every high-resolution image, the Iron Mountains continue to whisper their secrets. The planet does not care if we understand. It merely preserves, aligns, and endures. Our perception of industry, of purpose, of corridors and terraces may be imagination, but the structures themselves are real. They exist, monumental and eternal, waiting for interpretation we may never complete. Perhaps this is the planet's message. We are allowed to see, to wonder, to speculate, but never to fully know. And that is the true terror. Not that Mars is empty, not that it is silent, but that it holds knowledge beyond human reach, a system or process, deliberate or natural, waiting patiently in the dust and iron. And the final, unavoidable thought sinks in as you look across the red plains. Mars is not hiding from us. It is waiting for eyes, for understanding, or perhaps for patience we may never have. The Iron Mountains are more than formations. They are a question written in iron and stone, a code etched across valleys, terraces, and hollowed corridors. And the more we examine them, the more we sense intent, something deliberate behind the alignment, the repetition, the scale. It is as if Mars itself preserved a memory, a message, a function we are too late to understand. Speculation is tempting, almost irresistible. Could the ridges have been conduits? Could the terraces have been platforms for some machinery, or stages for processes we cannot conceive? Hollow chambers suggest extraction or storage. Repetition implies planning, foresight, or purpose. Even the placement of iron along specific corridors hints at guidance, distribution, perhaps even energy, and yet none of it is confirmed. We are left with shadows, impressions, and silence. Some scientists attempt analogies. Industrial ruins on Earth, abandoned steel mills, factories stripped of life, these provide a vocabulary for understanding. But Mars offers no confirmation, no traces of life, no evidence of occupation, no signs of construction beyond the shapes themselves. And in that absence, the mind begins to wander, imagining function, activity, even civilization. A planet that worked and labored, now frozen and quiet, leaving only structure as testimony. And there is a terrifying beauty in this, because even if we never know, the Iron Mountains communicate. Their terraces, their corridors, their hollow chambers, they speak in geometry, in scale, in repetition. They suggest rules, logic, patterns. They suggest intelligence, or something that mimicked it so perfectly that intelligence cannot be ruled out. The thought lingers, what if the purpose is not ours to grasp? Perhaps Mars shaped these structures for reasons beyond human comprehension, or perhaps the mountains themselves are the function, an enduring system, a monument, a warning. The more we try to define it, the more the answer slips like dust through fingers. And as we observe from orbit, we realize the magnitude of what remains hidden. Entire networks of ridges and corridors, invisible from a casual glance, waiting to be revealed by shadows, perspective, or human curiosity. The Iron Mountains are not static, they are dynamic in perception, alive in memory, a puzzle layered across time. Perhaps they were always meant to challenge us, not with danger, not with violence, but with silence, with scale, with the impossibility of understanding. Mars preserves, endures, and teases comprehension. It allows recognition, hints at purpose, and leaves only fragments for the mind to reconstruct. And in that reconstruction, unease settles deep. Because the more we try to map, measure, or simulate, the more we realize, these mountains are not just shapes. They are questions, warnings, memories, all folded into iron and stone, awaiting recognition. And then the final, haunting thought emerges. What if the purpose of the Iron Mountains was never for us to discover, but to remember, silently, what we might never fully understand? What we see on Mars is only half the story. The terraces, ridges, and hollowed corridors are impressive, but they are surface-level whispers of something far deeper. Beneath the red dust, hidden by millennia of sediment, lie shadows we cannot yet reach. The Iron Mountains may conceal chambers, tunnels, or structures that stretch far beyond what the eye or rover can perceive. Every image captured from orbit hints at these depths, teasing the imagination, refusing clarity. Contrast becomes essential. The surface is orderly, almost intentional, yet approachable. We can measure it, map it, simulate it, but the hidden world below defies certainty. Subtle depressions suggest vast cavities, layers of iron stacked like foundations, corridors that plunge into darkness, and we are powerless to explore them fully. Instruments detect anomalies, but no camera can penetrate fully. Mars keeps its secrets buried, presenting a facade of structure while the true scale remains elusive. Public perception compounds the mystery. For decades, mainstream images portrayed Mars as a barren desert, red and empty. The Iron Mountains challenge that narrative, yet they are often dismissed, hidden, or reduced to just geology. Science maintains caution, the public craves spectacle, and the mountains sit in between, monumental, silent, ignored, and revealed simultaneously. The tension grows. What the world is allowed to see versus what may truly exist remains in stark contrast. And in that tension lies fear, because the mind cannot help but imagine what is hidden. If surface ridges and hollow terraces suggest purpose, what does the deep, concealed network imply? Vaults, laboratories, transport channels, or something far older predating everything we know. The scale alone terrifies. Kilometers of hidden structure, aligned corridors, terraces that continue beneath layers of rock and dust, echoing a design too vast to comprehend. Even technology falters. Radar scans reveal anomalies, patterns in the subsurface iron, but the resolution is limited. Drills cannot penetrate far enough. Human eyes will likely never see the full extent, and yet the hints are deliberate. Mars allows glimpses, teasing possibility while guarding certainty. Every hidden cavity increases the tension. Every unexplored ridge whispers of knowledge lost or forbidden. The mind strains to reconcile the surface and the unseen. We are given half-truths, visible alignment, layered terraces, hollow chambers, and we are denied the rest. Mars exists in a delicate balance between revelation and concealment. It shows what it wants, hides what it must. And the more we explore, the more we sense that the true story, what really shaped these mountains, what purpose they served, remains tantalizingly out of reach. And as the imagination drifts into those hidden depths, a single thought forms, chilling in its quiet certainty. What if the iron mountains above are only the beginning, and the true purpose, the real story, lies buried, deliberately concealed, and waiting for eyes that may never arrive? Modern exploration reaches for answers, but Mars remains elusive. Rovers traverse ridges and terraces, orbiters map the plains, radar scans probe beneath the surface, but each attempt uncovers more questions than answers. Subtle anomalies appear in the data, shadowed hollows stretching beyond expectations, iron concentrations in impossible alignments, corridors that continue far beyond the mapped surface. Every discovery teases the mind, yet confirms nothing. There is silence from the scientific community. Caution dominates. Explanations are framed in neutral terms: geological formations, natural erosion, sedimentary patterns. Public fascination is tempered by authority. The narrative is controlled, the mystery acknowledged but contained. And within that containment grows an unsettling thought. If the Iron Mountains were truly ordinary, would there be such persistent ambiguity? Such careful framing of evidence, explorers themselves sense it. Teams analyzing data describe patterns that feel deliberate, almost functional, but immediately qualify their statements. Language softens suspicion into speculation. And yet the structures continue, indifferent to interpretation, monumental in scale, precise in alignment, and haunting in repetition. Mars seems aware, patient, letting curiosity grow while withholding comprehension. And then there are the gaps. Regions the rovers cannot reach, cavities too deep to probe, terrain too unstable to traverse, hidden corridors hinted at by shadows, subsurface anomalies that radar cannot fully resolve. Mars preserves these mysteries deliberately, leaving enough visible to intrigue, yet enough concealed to frustrate. We see the surface, but what lies beneath may hold the key to purpose, function, or origin, and we cannot touch it. The more we attempt to map, measure, and simulate, the more the unknown stretches. Every new dataset opens possibilities for interpretation, yet defies certainty. Corridors may connect distant terraces. Hollow chambers may extend for kilometers. Iron concentrations may mark structural reinforcement or deliberate shaping. The planet gives hints, fragments of a story, but never resolution. And the unease grows when one realizes the implication. These are not random formations. They are monumental, aligned, hollowed, structured, enduring. They speak in geometry, in scale, in placement. And yet the architects or natural forces remain invisible. The structures exist beyond explanation, waiting patiently for understanding we may never reach. And finally, as the rovers retreat and the orbiters scan from above, the most disturbing thought emerges. Perhaps the Iron Mountains are not just remnants of a forgotten past. Perhaps they are deliberately preserved mysteries, designed by nature or something else, to endure, to provoke curiosity, and to remain unknowable. Mars watches. Mars waits, Mars remembers, and now we leave Mars behind. The Iron Mountains stretch beneath the fading horizon, colossal, silent, eternal. Their terraces, hollow corridors, and aligned ridges remain, untouched by time, indifferent to our presence. We have measured them, photographed them, mapped them. We have speculated, theorized, imagined. Yet we understand nothing. The planet does not welcome interpretation. It allows observation, encourages curiosity, but guards its purpose fiercely. Shadows shift, corridors hint at hidden chambers, terraces suggest function. Iron concentrates in ways that defy explanation, and beneath it all the silence grows louder. Mars remembers, Mars endures. Mars waits. We carry fragments back to Earth, images, data, impressions. We discuss, debate, and dismiss some ideas as fantasy. And yet every corridor, every hollowed chamber, every terrace whispers the same truth. Something existed here, something deliberate, monumental, and long gone. A process, a force, intelligence, purpose, we cannot say. And the haunting part is this: the mountains are patient. They will endure long after we are gone, after rovers have stopped moving, after orbiters have decayed. Billions of years may pass, yet they will persist, monolithic, silent, impossible. They are a memory written in iron, a story without an author, a question without an answer. We tell ourselves they are natural, that the brain imposes meaning, that time and chemistry aligned by chance. But the more we look, the less comforting those explanations feel. The mountains do not merely exist, they insist. They insist on recognition, on contemplation, on acknowledgement of something larger than comprehension. And as we drift farther, leaving the red dust behind, the final thought settles like a shadow across the mind. What if Mars is not hiding secrets? What if it is preserving memories, memories of work, of purpose, of intelligence, and we are too late or too small to fully understand? The iron mountains will wait, shadows will shift, corridors will endure, and somewhere in the layers of iron and stone, the story continues, silent, patient, impossible to ignore. Perhaps one day someone, or something, will return. Perhaps we never will. And until that day comes, the question remains: what truly shaped the iron mountains of Mars, and why does the planet remember so perfectly what we cannot?